Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 27th day, never a dull day in the wild world of sports. Russell Wilson, multiple reports now just came before I got on the program that Wilson will be cut down to Rossini out of the Athletic. We already know that he's been benched for the next two games for Jarrett Stidham. Sean Payton made that announcement today. I'll give you my thoughts on that. We'll do good scope, bad scope. Plus, star cornerback Jaire Alexander suspended for this week's big game against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll talk about that and more. Let's go ahead and get our first and only break out of the way. We'll hit the ground running here in 49 seconds on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then. Okay. Now, Donna Rossini, Athletics, she said just in, Russell Wilson is expected to be cut by Denver in March. For almost 2 months, Wilson has known the Broncos are likely going to move on from him after this season here. She says it's expected to be cut by March. Okay, now, that was the same quote. I was looking to see if I had anything else into that. Listen, Wilson, we knew there was a problem with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. There was a problem with this offense with Nathaniel Hackett last year. Then you have an issue there. Wilson wanted to get out of Seattle with Pete Carroll there. So at some point, even though his numbers aren't as bad as I thought that they would be, but actually looking at his touchdown interception and whatnot, at some point, I think Russell's got to look in the mirror and say, well, maybe there's something to my game that I need to adjust and stop blaming others here. Here's Sean Payton today, a few comments about making this quarterback change.
Speculation. Real quick, couple of things. So, obviously, we just finished our Wednesday practice. Most of you know we made a change at quarterback. And I understand all the speculation and everything that surrounds a move like that. And I can tell you, look, we're desperately trying to win. And sure, in our game today, there are economics and all those other things, but the number one push behind this, and it's a decision I'm making, is to get a spark offensively. Obviously, it's difficult, and all of us feel like, man, we didn't do well enough. But one of the things we saw when we signed Stidham in the offseason was not only film from preseason games, but regular season games. And, he's a guy that, I'm anxious to see play. And
so he's pretty high on Stidham here. Sean Payton is and whatnot. So it's listen, folks, this is going to be a tough task here. I did read. Here's some numbers here. Spot Tracker, I love to go to Spot Tracker. It says if the Broncos release him next March, the $39 million owed to him on the way out would be reduced by, however, how much he earns from a new team in 24. Minimum salary for Russell next year comes in at $1.21 million. So that part of it, I just got to understand here in the last few hours. This story broke around lunchtime today, depending on where you're at in the country here. So when you read that, I read that about 2 hours ago and tried to decipher that. Now, about 30 minutes ago or less, Diana Rossetti says they're going to cut him. So my thing is, they're saying that. I'll believe that the Denver Broncos, who will take, from what I understand, according to ESPN, will take $185 million in dead money. Everything you need to know, the Broncos might dump Russell Wilson, who signed a 5-year, $246 million contract last year, carries plenty of potential salary cap pain if Russell isn't behind center in 24. Sean Payton has been open with his displeasure. Okay. So there's something that the organization's trying to do and manipulate that we're all not aware of, or they're not saying publicly. I think that they're trying to get a suitor. I think they're trying to get a suitor for Wilson. They're not going to just cut him and take that hit here. And after reading, the Russell will be 36. He'll be 36 next year. Not a spring chicken. I said this when he signed this big contract about 2 or 3 years ago with Seattle. When he signed that, and I said, man, this guy, 5'10", maybe 5'11", depending on who gives you his height. He's very reliant on his speed, and his ability to get outside the pocket is going to deteriorate. Once you start paying this guy $30+ million a year, that's against the cap here, things are going to start going south for Seattle. And, of course, we know they did. They tried this let Russ cook. And then once you started letting Russ cook, you started seeing L's come up on the team. It just didn't fit in good with the offense. We all blame Pete Carroll a year later, myself included, thinking that Carroll was going to get hurt or that that Carroll's teams were going to fall apart. Obviously, that wasn't the case. This goes off as one of the biggest trades heist of all time. This is very Herschel Walker, 1988-89 Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings type of trade. You look at guys like Devin Witherspoon. They got the offensive tackle there. The right tackle there they picked up. Just player after player after player. And, of course, Seattle's got a lot of salary cap room for this. And now they're very much into the playoff hunt. Technically, Denver is too, though, this year, And Seattle's just I just thought about Devin Witherspoon, too. I mean, of course, Jackson Smith and Jigma got a lot of really good players here that come about. But my point is, if you wanted to do a one-and-done type of thing, if you wanted to load up all in on a team with that 1.12 number that he could play for and say Denver takes $30 million of his salary, that's what Denver's hanging out over people's head. Okay, let me give you a quick take on their on where he is numbers wise. I mean, he's not that bad. I mean, he's let's see, in total touchdowns here, Russell Wilson, I want to say is he's sixth. He's got more touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes and Tua this year. He's got 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not bad. What is this guy's name? Cosell here. This is why I don't need to get away from my notes too much. Greg Cosell with NFL Film says it looks like he cannot see above the line of scrimmage in some particular plays. Again, when he's being coached to stay in the pocket, he has problem getting down the field. He has to obviously move outside to his left to get the ball downfield, like we all seen him do in Seattle here. That was what he said, that he has problems seeing over the line with his age and injury history. Not injury, with his age, coming up with his height issues. That's going to be a accumulating problem here. So you say, who would he fit? Well, Pickles says maybe Falcons, and that would be Falcons. You've got a Drake London, who I think it can potentially be an elite wide receiver, really good route runner. You have a left tackle there in place here. You have Bijan Robinson, one of the better young running backs that would be coming into his second year here. Desmond Ridder is not the guy. Taylor Heineke, those are both backup guys in this league to bridge quarterbacks, what Taylor Heineke has been this year. You throw in a Kyle Pitts at tight end. They've improved their defense. They still need a few more pieces. But if you got a Russell Wilson for 2023 or 2024, you got him for 2024 at $1.5 million. You could stack a team and say, well, maybe we can put off 25 too, him being 36, 37 years old. That's a dome team. If Arthur Blank decides to keep the other Arthur Smith on the team, Russell Wilson would be a viable option. Put him, where he's in a dome where you're not. And plus, look at the quarterbacks in that division. There's been a lot of talks about perhaps Baker Mayfield signing an extension with Tampa. Well, Wilson at 36 over Baker Mayfield. Yeah, that looks good. We don't know what's going to happen in New Orleans, whether they're going to fire Dennis Allen. And Wilson over a guy like a Derek Carr, well, he's got much more of a resume. He's got much more of a resume over Derek Carr. And, of course, you're looking at the stripped-down Carolina Panthers, who are still looking for a new head coach there, and the young Bryce Young. So Atlanta would make a lot of sense. You've got the offensive-minded head coach. You have a dome where arm strength and everything like that wouldn't really be an issue. Another place that I thought about for Russell Wilson would be in Minnesota. Another with the expiring contract of a Kirk Cousins. You're taking out a guy that's not a big game player versus a guy who has won a Super Bowl, won multiple playoff games, and also a dome team. And I really like what McDonald's done. He is really proven a lot to me. He had something going there for a little while before the injury started taking over Minnesota. Hopefully they can keep Brian Flores if he doesn't get another job offer as a head coach at defensive coordinator. You've got Justin Jefferson there, and you've got Jordan Addison there, a young rising quarterback on a rookie contract. So only thing they're missing is maybe a few pieces on the defensive side of the ball here. What I would try to propose if I'm another team or if I'm Denver, I don't know what they can really get for him. If somehow Pickle says KT Osborne, very fast, and you got a Matson there, I think something with the young, innovative offensive coordinator, offensive-minded head coach, I think he would gel more with one of these guys than he would gel with a Sean Payton. We saw Sean Payton arguing with Russell Wilson on the sideline there, or really chewing him out. Sean Payton is from the old school Bill Parcells coaching tree here, where they don't like to do a lot of nonsense. Like I said the other day, Wilson's used to being under a guy like a Pete Carroll, who's more like a Phil Jackson, and Sean Payton is more of like a Pat Riley, more of a hard grinder, old school type of guy. Again, looking at his numbers here, it's not that bad. He needs to have a really good running game with him around him. I wouldn't try to ask him to do too much. You want to stay within his strengths here. It's not the end of the world. You want to hope, if you're a Denver fan, that you can squeeze out a few picks here to move up in the draft, per se, which they do have their first-round pick this year, and get one of these young quarterbacks. It's not going to be Jared Stidham. Go out and get a J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. I don't know if Michael Penix will be there, where they're picking we don't know. Will they be picking? Probably in the teens. They'll be picking somewhere in the teens. They finally got I'm not going to double check here, but I do think that they still have their first round this year. Last year and the year before that, yes, they'll be picking 14th if the season ended today. Denver would be picking 14th. Carlos sent me some message that said, what about a Detroit or a Tennessee? I'm not so sure about those two teams. Tennessee still in rebuilding mode. They're still want to add. They want to use. By the way, when doing research for this program, I went back and checked every website to double check and see who's got the most money coming into 2024 in cap space. All right. And finally, I got overthecap.com, 33rd Team, this website, and of course, Spot Track, who I go to, and they're all in sync now. Of who's got the most money. Number one would be the Washington Commanders at $88 million, followed by the Tennessee Titans with $84, $75 for the New England Patriots. I do not think the Patriots would go after a Russell Wilson. They're drafting fourth. Maybe they go with the young quarterback route as well. Most teams want to, folks. They want to go the young quarterback, stack the team on the young quarterback, around the young quarterback on that rookie salary. They would have stacked the team on that rookie salary and tried to win a Super Bowl before that player gets his next contract, a fourth or fifth year option, around that fifth year option time, and go ahead and take a shot there. Other teams here, Chicago's got $63 million. Their number has changed. I don't know if they extended some people and we didn't figure this out. Arizona, 55. Of course, they've got Kyler Murray. Cincinnati's got a lot next year. They're going to still be able to make a run. Along with Houston and Indy, these teams all drafted players. I mean, the Titans have Will Levis, who showed some signs to me. Maybe now I'll tell you what, Sam Howell fell off. He just got benched. With the new, with some players on defense, with some skilled players, Terry McLaurin under contract for a few years, O'Brien Robertson there. They still need some help on the line as well. Would a Washington, depending on, we have no idea who the new coach would be. They still got Ron Rivera. My guess is they will fire Rivera. Maybe they go after a Jim Harbaugh and add a Russell Wilson. I don't know. I know they can afford it. According to this, they have the most money. They're at $88 million against Tennessee's at $84. New England at $75. I mean, for whatever reason, if Robert Kraft changes his mind totally and says, you know what, Bill Belichick, we've got a solution here. Let's go out and get this veteran quarterback here. We'll move off Mac Jones and we'll go out and hire a general manager, get 2 or 3 players to put around. It's a big receiver free agency class, by the way. T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans potentially could be available, players like that. And go out and get one of those players, put a Russell Wilson in there, pretty decent offensive line. a lot of young players on their defense, including Anthony Gonzalez. Could they possibly put Russell Wilson in a New England? Maybe. But my thing is, why would Sean Payton get so ticked off at Wilson? I think Wilson was getting off track, okay? I think he's used to getting his way. He's turned – this is what I'm hearing and reading. I see a nice guy, right? You see a nice guy. But we all know that for those of us that are paying attention, he's had fallouts with players on the field, teammates last year, teammates hollering at him and stuff. Those are reports last year. Sometimes one time I've seen him arguing. I think it was Hamler or somebody like that. One of the receivers last year. He had his own office. He turned into somewhat of a prima donna. I'm talking about Russell Wilson. After he got this big contract extension here, it's kind of like a very Barry Bonds where he, make an appointment to see him. I mean, you don't want to be separate. I don't care how good a superstar. Brady was never like that. He tried to listen to the young players' music. He wanted to converge, even though he's 20 years older than some of these players here, old enough to be some of their dads. You always want to be like one of the guys, even though you're not. You wear a different color jersey. You cannot get sacked. But, some of the guys in Seattle did not like this. There are reports that because of his relationship and Pete Carroll going back to the Super Bowl where they called the audible and where he threw the interception on the 1 yard line instead of just giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch. All this stuff is a history here. He kind of comes off as a teacher's pet, I guess. I don't know. So you really have to give all this stuff into consideration when signing with the new team. But again, I think he's got young energy here. With his wife being in entertainment and everything, he would probably be a very good fit in Atlanta. I could see him. She's from Dallas. Sierra, the famous wife. I think they would be a good fit in Atlanta if Arthur Blank decides to keep Arthur Smith. And especially Atlanta Falcons fans, that would be a very interesting situation there if he can only take the 1 point something million. Now, of course, Denver pulls some kind of draft compensation for that. I don't know, third, fourth round. They're not going to get a first round pick. None of their stock is way shot for that. His stock is way shot for getting a big boatload of picks here because everybody's kind of laughing at Denver behind the scenes because it looks like Seattle got a lot of future players out of Wilson, and plus they do not have his salary to tend to. Carlos said he's trying to get all that. Yeah, so maybe they'll be able to get a draft pick. I don't know. I do know one thing. Denver's they're not going to go with Jarrett Stidham. I know Peyton likes Jarrett Stidham. I played what he said today. I think I'm just not really sure about that. Yeah, Carlos, and I'll bring this up on Friday. He's saying the Tennessee, the Giants, and Detroit would be. He thinks that would be the best fit. The Giants need to get out of Daniel Jones's contract. Tennessee does not have enough pieces around him. They want to keep Will Levis on a rookie contract, and they want to build this line up. But I will say this, Carlos, if I forget to say it later, the Titans are second now in most money, $84 million in cap space. Come March, they're going to be very interesting. I'll be all on that and I'll have Rich Ferris on here from Titans Radio. We'll be talking about free agency as it gets closer. It'll be here before you know it. We're pushing up on January. It's usually around the second week of March, but the first week of March we'll start to know who's going to go where. You've got players like Jonas Williams, right tackle out of Cincinnati. You got players like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman. You've got cornerbacks, Snead out of Kansas City. A lot of stuff's going to be happening. Now we throw in Russell Wilson, folks. So it's going to be interesting. And maybe a trade is worked out for Mac Jones. But it just seems that it's not working Wilson's going to have to change some of what his tactics are, his approach to the game. Again, for those of you who just joined me, it didn't work out at the end with Pete Carroll. He pushed his way out of town there. It did. We blame Nathaniel Hackett. Now you got Sean Payton. At some point, Wilson's got to say, maybe I got to change my approach, So it's going to be an interesting story. We know now that this is going to happen. This was all speculation. 6 weeks. Now, Diana Rossini is saying, let me go back to her, this lady from Diana Rossini saying that they have been, for almost 2 months, the quarterback has been starting knowing the organization was most likely going to move on for him. So we're talking too much in the making here. It's just what we all expected, a lot of us, that this thing's not going to work out with him and Peyton. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Now, okay, let's do a hypothetical. What if they do just take the $85 million cap hit? That is dealt out over a few years according to this spot track. You would like to get that roped into 1 year, tank and reset. It's not going to work out that way. But, look at the Rams. The Rams are sitting on a $70 million dead cap this year, and they're in the playoff hunt. They are right in the thick of things with 2 weeks to go. So that's a very good job by Sean Payton. You look at the Sean Payton, you look at the Matt Stafford, I think him and Russell Wilson are about the same age, and they're still viable and competitive. So Wilson, he needs to be an offensive-minded head coach, and he needs a above-average offensive line and a running game around him. The older a quarterback gets post-32, you have to really, really build those things up around him, especially the line and running game. When a quarterback is a rookie, you want to overstock him with players around him to get his confidence up, to build him around him. When he signs his second contract via Patrick Mahomes, you have to start stripping that away because his cap hit's going to go up, and he's got the knowledge and the experience and fortitude to push forward with less, like Patrick Mahomes did last year. And then when a guy like a Mahomes or a Russell Wilson starts to get post-30, like a Tom Brady, you have to go the other way. You have to really protect this player and go back and build up just like as if he were a rookie, per se. Okay, because his physical limitations. Interesting to see where it follows. And Carlos thinks maybe he have 2 to 3 years left. Yeah, his numbers aren't as bad as I thought they were. Was it 26-8 with 2 weeks to go? They're just not that bad. I mean, he's thrown more touchdowns. He's tied with he's got the same amount of touchdowns as Patrick Mahomes, except Patrick Mahomes has got 6 more interceptions. His interceptions down because they were running 40 times a game. They were running 40 times a game there at the end. And that's how they got on their 5-game winning streak and got out of that hole when there was, 0-5 at the beginning of the season. And a lot of it was on the defensive coordinator making some big mistakes, giving up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins there. So, okay. So, speaking of problems, okay, I talked about this story last week with switching gears here to the NFC North here. Now, Green Bay barely beat one of the worst offenses in the league last week, 33-30 in overtime. Carolina Panthers, okay? This was in Charlotte, game played in Charlotte. And today, it's weird, all this stuff happened. I guess all the league had Tuesday off. Except for me, I had to work Tuesday. But here it is Wednesday in the middle of the week. These announcements are usually made on Tuesday, by the way. But I got Christmas on Monday. I guess everybody got Tuesday off. Go figure, right? But anyways, so the Green Bay Packers, Jar Alexander, he's a Charlotte, North Carolina native. So you send your 3 captains to the 3 minutes before kickoff. It took me about 45 minutes to research this, but this is ridiculous. To the 50-yard line, 3 minutes before kickoff to meet up with the referee to do the coin toss. Okay, so he rushes in there. Jar Alexander, he was not a captain. So he runs in there and says he starts calling the coin toss. He calls tails. It comes up tails, and the ref's like, well, what do you want? What do you want to do? And he said, I want to be on defense. He said, do you mean defer? He said, I want to be on defense. Little did I know, this problem's happened before, according to, to the head coach there. I got his name here, and that's why I don't like to get too far away from my notes. Okay, but apparently Matt LaFleur, according to Matt LaFleur, this problem's happened before. So what LaFleur does, he goes out and tells the referees that we want to defer. Essentially, if we win it, we want to defer. And, of course, if they lose, he tells the captains to say, what direction do you want to go? In other words, defer means you get the kickoff. You get the you kick off to the opposing team. You'll get the ball back in the second half. But if you just say defense, we want to play defense, and don't use the proper terms, check this out, Pickles. If you say that can mean you kick off both halves. I've never heard of that. Listen to Jar Alexander after the game when a reporter asked him about this. If any of this makes sense, folks.
Supposed to be a captain because the team announces the 3 game captains and you were the 4th and you called the toss. What happened there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's only suiting. I don't think Coach knew I was from Charlotte.
So you just did that on your own?
I mean, it was like the guys backed me up. So they knew I was from here.
Did you realize you almost made a big mistake on the call, though?
What'd I do?
Well, you said we want to go on defense.
Yeah.
Which, in theory, they could have said, then you're electing to kick off, which you would have lost the opportunity then to receive in the second half.
Yeah, no, I told them that. I said I want our defense to be out there, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, it's pretty simple what I said. Like, I want the defense to be out there. They're like, you mean defer? I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Okay. Did he say that to you?
Yeah, he did.
The mic was on.
Oh, well,
yeah, he heard you.
Oh, really? No, he was just like, defer. I was like, yeah. Everybody's like, yeah. Everybody was laughing. I'm like, what y'all laughing at? It's pretty obvious what I'm asking for.
So did anyone say anything to you when you got back to the sideline?
Did you hear what that reporter said? He says, you know that but saying defense, you could have said, we play on defense both times. So if you don't use the proper verbiage here, which I didn't know that, but if you don't use the proper verbiage, they could have lost the possession in an overtime game. Listen, I've looked up this story, and I think this guy's name is Dipsky or whatever. He's the reporter for ESPN, Rob Dipsky or whatever, for ESPN. It covers the Packers. And essentially, he's saying that, this guy's been hurt. He's been on a limited basis for a few weeks. He's missed like 5 games now, Jar Alexander. And he's been on a limited basis for a few weeks. Since November 5th, Sunday's game was the first game Alexander suited up. This is from ESPN. November 5th, when he suffered a shoulder injury against the Rams. However, Alexander had been practicing on a limited basis, but has been inactive week after week, leading to Sunday's game was the first time, ironically, in his hometown of Charlotte. Okay, been suited up. So Alexander has been practicing, and been an active week leading. Okay. So, but Alexander and those close to him, what does this say? Was inactive, leading to questions about whether or not there was something other than the injury. This is from ESPN, keeping him out. But Alexander and those close to him insisted it was injury related and not displeasure with the organization. He's the highest paid cornerback in the NFL, $21 million with 1 loose week's pay. However, because of most of his money came in signing and roster bonus, his base salary is only $1 million, meaning he only lose $60,000. He also gave up $700,000 workout bonus this spring when he opted to skip the offseason program. When Alexander reported for mandatory minicamp in June, he preferred to be in Green Bay when no one else was around the team facility, so he stayed in town after last season but left the mandatory. So you're starting to see this. Okay, $21 million. Players change. Players, a lot of players. I saw this with Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, when he was just that 5th round guy trying to make his way, him and I was another guy, I can't remember his name now. But anyways, he seemed like a guy, a grinder, number 84, always open, doing well. We're talking 2012, 2013, 2012, 2013, something of that nature there, doing really well. Then you hear about his massive extension there with the Steelers. Then we start to hear about these crazy accolades. I think that's turning into an issue here with Green Bay. There's been some issues with Joe Barry there. This defensive coordinator here. Okay, so you've got 2 different issues going there at once. Number one, Alexander, not quite the player he was a couple of years ago. I think if he didn't take his sunglasses off, he's laughing when that reporter brought up the fact that, you could have lost the possession. You could have had it where you kicking off both halves and lost the possession. They essentially could have lost the game because he wanted his friends and family to see him at the coin toss when he's not a captain that week and risk that team losing the game just because he wanted his shine in front of his home crowd. Now, I thought about this and I said, when you first see this, you think, okay, do you think LaFleur and the coaching staff, are they being a little too hard on this guy? And then I thought, after read everything that's happened here, that he could have cost them the game. Brian Gutekunst, which is the general manager on LaFleur, they have a massive game coming up Sunday against Minnesota. They're still in this thing. They got to play at Minnesota, and Minnesota's got a rock star of a wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. And you wanted that equalizer, that 6'1" frame, Jar Alexander there. So there's got to be some undercurrent there with Jar Alexander, okay? There's got to be some kind of undercurrent. It's got to be more to it than this. But just going by what the coach said, just jumping out there, hijack it, not knowing what you're doing, and could mess around and mess up the kickoff. Of course, McFleur, he already told the refs prior to it, it's more ceremonial purposes for the players to go up because you actually have to, call the coin toss and everything. You have to go through all those. You got to go through the routine, if you want to call it there, to see with the game. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this, judging by what I'm seeing in this particular situation. Of course, I wish I could load videos here. Maybe that'll be the next thing. And you can see how nonchalant he was here. Procedures, what Pickle says. You can see how nonchalant he was here. I like the NFL culture here. Denver, you can get a sense you got a prima donna with Russell Wilson. You move off of him. You get a guy. See, what if he's just doing stuff he doesn't even talk to the coach about or anybody. He just bomb rushes the coin flip. What does that say to the actual captains? What does that say to the teammates here? Maybe I could just do anything. Maybe I could just blow off practice here because I'm Jar Alexander or whatever. So I like the fact that they did what they did. It's just contrary to the NBA type of culture where you've got a LeBron James saying that, listen, yeah, I just hit that game-winning shot, but the coach wanted me to pass the ball off. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not taking the ball out because what do you want me to do, shoot from behind the backboard? You got guys like Kobe Bryant checking himself in the games when they went through a series of coaches after Phil Jackson. He's checking himself in the games. You had LeBron sitting in the coach's seat. And then you got guys pushing himself out of town here. So I do not want the NBA. I do not want the NBA culture here. Load management. This is what happens when you get too much guaranteed money. It is just a natural thing for people just to rest on their laurels. They got a lot of money. They got money in the bank. They feel like they can just be disrespectful towards their coaching staff, towards their teammates, and just go willy-nilly. That is what's still special about the NFL. That's why a lot of the fuss was come out about Deshaun Watson. Now, Watson, in my opinion, contrary to what others may say, he has been a trooper. $250 million, totally guaranteed contract. Everything he said and done as a Cleveland Brown player, including wanting to continue to play through that shoulder injury, according to Stefanski. But the team said, no, we're not going to let it do it because it could shatter his shoulder. I think he's been a total trooper. I could see why other owners do not want to get to this point where you have these total guaranteed contracts like a Deshaun Watson. Contrary to the fact that Watson had all these sexual assault allegations of suing for everything, and Kirk Cousins also had this type of contract. Nothing really came about it from Minnesota. They really didn't win anything big. They had some stability at quarterback. I want to say, well, they got to the playoffs. I don't even think they won a play. I think they won one playoff game, right? I think they beat the Saints a few years ago for his $90 million in guaranteed money and Kirk Cousins here. So I'm okay with the non-guaranteed contracts, essentially. And for this reason right here, this crazy stuff like that from Jar Alexander. That being said, I still think they'll probably move off this coordinator. I think LaFleur, you're starting to see some action there. You start to see some development there around Thanksgiving. Okay, they beat Detroit without Jar Alexander. One of those games were when he was not there. Maybe he is the problem. Okay, because then they turn around and beat who else they beat after that? Oh yeah, they beat Patrick Mahomes there in Kansas City without Jar Alexander. And you're talking about two of the better skill player position there. And you're also talking about one of the better quarterbacks, even though he's having a pretty lousy season there. But so I'm okay with this thing. Contrary of what others around the NFL may say about this. Again, there's probably more to it than this. There's probably more to it than this. Well, there's one thing like I said, I found out LaFleur said this problem's happened before. So now he goes up and talks to the ref before the game to make sure nobody bleeps things up. That's what happens when you got a young coach like that, clean cut, friendly, offensive background, more. This is what I was managing. Corey knows that. We've had this talk before, and I was managing security firm. I'm 25 years old. I'm one of the youngest supervisors there. I'm dealing with people 10, 12 years older than me, a heck of a lot bigger than me. Very disrespectful. They take my kindness for weakness. And, I had to call them into the office, look them in the eye and say, listen, I'm not that guy, man. I'm nice. Do not take it for weakness. I will write you up. And then eventually I had to write up a few guys, and I had to get some respect that way. Sometimes you got to lay down the law. You can do it respectfully, but, hey, that's just human nature. Some people are like a shark in the water. If they see any kind of weakness, they're just going to run all over you, NH running the nut house. Pickle says, yeah, those technics, that's what I'm saying. They think they're soft and they just run over. Would you ever see this with a Bill Belichick coach team or a Bill Parcells type of team? Are you kidding me? Can you see this with Nick Saban? Nick Saban would blow a gap. Maybe that's why Saban stayed in college, Totally blow a gasket if he just has some random player. Just because I'm from my hometown and, nobody cares. I'm going to run out here and holler something at the coin toss here and potentially lose us possession when we kick off both halves. I mean, what if they would have lost the game because of that, What if the second half kickoff, you lose a possession that way and they run it back? So, anyways, I didn't get to this yesterday. I'm going to go to it today. Good scope, bad scope. Where I was right, where I was wrong. And like I said, I got this from the Colin Cowherd show. It's good to have accountability where I've screwed things up and where I may have nailed them. Okay, well, I was right here. Kevin Stefanski talked about it last week. Speaking of Cleveland, that, maybe he's in line to get Coach of the Year again with 4 different quarterbacks here. I say that because Joe Flacco, very good chemistry last Sunday there with Amari Cooper, set a team record against Houston there. So was it over 250 yards receiving there. Browns got 10 rough wins with 4 different quarterbacks here. Carlos is he's still talking college football here. West Virginia beat up on UNC. You never know who's going to show up in these college games that are outside the playoff here. Okay, so the bad scope. Totally writing off Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. Still a possibility long term. This thing could be a disaster. What if they sign Mayfield to a big contract? He goes back to being the Baker Mayfield that was the number 1 pick in Cleveland, and things fall off. The shelf here. They're only 8-7, but they are leading the South. They're the favorites to win this NFC South right now. I thought that they would be, in NBA terms, a lottery team. I thought Tampa would be right there with where Charlotte is right now, where the Carolina Panthers are, where Arizona would be. Picking early in the draft here, but they're not. They're actually winning their division and have a shot at an extension for Baker Mayfield and, of course, his coach Todd Bowles here, which neither thought. They played great against the Jags Sunday. I had a big parlay and I had Tampa with them. So kudos to Tampa to actually help me in one of my huge parlays over the weekend here. So I was wrong about that, Carlos. You and I want to think. I think Keith Engel mentioned something about that in the offseason as well. Good scope. Okay, listen. I said the Lions. I said the Lions would knock out Minnesota on Sunday, and they would win the division for the first time in 30 years. Talked about that yesterday since 1993. It's a funny thing about that. I was just watching, for those of you who got Amazon Prime, very good documentary on Barry Sanders by Barry. Barry suddenly retires in 1999. This documentary goes throughout his career. They talk about that 93 season, 92. I think they got their first playoff win, 91, 92. I think they beat the Cowboys in that first playoff win. Of course, Dallas comes back the next year 92, 93, and ends up winning the Super Bowl. No, 91, 92. It was awesome, though. Really cool for the Lions fans here. It's right about that. Big win there. May try to get Jeremy, I think was that Jeremy Pugh there, big Lions fan, bring him back on the program. Thought about doing it today. Had too much stuff to talk about, catch up on. May bring Jeremy back in next week after the Dallas game, but still, they have clinched the division, and they got a lot of good players here. Okay, bad picking against Lamar Jackson against the NFC. Man, he's now 20-1. 20-1. Even though, San Francisco outgained them. The 49ers did outgain them, but Brock Purdy, he turned the ball over going against a really good defense. Lamar didn't have the greatest game. Very pedestrian, but he did not turn the ball over or anything like that. So he played a clean game. They get the win. And the funny thing about it is the only team that beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens was the Giants last year with Daniel Jones. Maybe that was because Wink Martindale, the former defensive coordinator for them, was the current coordinator of the Giants at the time, and that's the only loss for the Ravens. They're playing really well. Kudos to them. Good scope. I said the Titans would come up short. Many questions online, and their young quarterback and Ryan Tannehill's injuries. They have been eliminated from the playoffs here. Let me make sure I get the part 2 to this. They have been eliminated from the playoffs here. They have some money to regroup. Like I said, they're second. They are second in the league with the most money. A lot of good players out there available for a team like Tennessee. There's some good cornerbacks, receivers, decent interior linemen. They'll probably have to go to the draft to get some players, but you never know what they may do. They may trade for a player. Okay, so fans and ownership, they really want to see Vrabel turning around in 24. I do think more pressure will be on Vrabel next year to get this thing going back, winning again. I think he'll deliver. I'm one of the few that still, even though he's a defensive-minded guy, still thinks that he can do it. But we'll see. We'll see in 24 coming up here in just a few months. We'll be in free agency. We'll start the new league year in March. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson and the Titans and all that good stuff. Okay? All right. Which leads me to the next section. I'm almost towards the end of the hour here. I got caught up in that Russell Wilson story. Okay. Power 5, the NFL Power 5 here. Cannot leave the show without doing the NFL Power 5, which is very hard to do because there's a lot of bad teams. Okay, number 5. You can laugh all you want to. I still got the Eagles in the top 5 here. Despite all the chaos, they're 11-4 with Arizona and another Giants game coming back. Likely a 2 seed. Perhaps could still get a shot at the 1 seed if San Francisco slips up to a red-hot Rams team. They had their best corner, Darius Slay. They're going to get him back by the end of the regular season. Has some kind of a scope type of operation on his knee. Miami, if they beat Baltimore next week, they could slip in here as well. But we'll see. We'll see how they play here. But number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles. The way Al Michaels would say, get your eagle on. Okay. All righty then. Let me see if I can find the rest of this NFL Power 5. Okay, now here's number 4. Listen, Cleveland. Folks, Cleveland Browns with Amari Cooper. I mentioned that earlier. Franchise record, 265 yards. Note their defense still first in total yards allowed. Believe this or not, the Cleveland Browns still got an outside shot at the 1 seed and can still win the AFC North. Listen, the Ravens, they got to play Miami Sunday, and they got to play the Steelers. And we know how well the Steelers match up against the Ravens. You just don't know. You just don't know about this Browns team. They are a team that nobody really wants to play right now. I talked about it earlier with Kevin Stefanski. Having his team at 10 wins of 4 different quarterbacks may get another Coach of the Year bid here. Okay, now Bills. Bills at 3. I read a stat this morning that this is the least sacked Josh Allen has been. This is the best offensive line he has had. That's kind of got buried because they got off to such a rough start. They got away from running the ball. James Cook talked about this the other day. A lot of running backs really hit their stride in their second year. In their second year, they really hit their stride. They're giving him the ball more. They've had some injuries. I thought that Charger game would be close, coming off that big emotional game against the Cowboys where they blew them out. The week before that, big win on the road at Kansas City here. Listen, this team, they get sacks here. They're getting players back, and they're going to get another cornerback back that's going to be activated off IR to help out there in the depth in the secondary. This team knows that they had the late bye week. They're a throw away from beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're currently in the playoff with the losses ahead. They are in the wild card hunt. You do not want to mess with a team that has been battle tested like this. Kansas City's down. They match up well against Baltimore, but I don't know. Maybe Baltimore, they beat Baltimore twice. This is a much better Baltimore team. That would be a great matchup to see. I got them at number 3 at Buffalo Bills. Same as I had them last week. They're going to get revenge on New England this week. I think they'll beat the Patriots this week, but watch out. The Patriots beat them earlier this season. So keep an eye on them. Okay, number 2. Even though they did outgame the Ravens, again, 4 turnovers by Brock Purdy alone, 5 total. A lesson learned coming into the playoffs. Those interceptions by Brock Purdy here against the Ravens, that's probably a blessing in disguise. He's getting really wild with his throws, overconfident, throwing deep into double coverage here. Did he realize he ran into a team that's got a lot of first-round draft picks on their secondary, including Kyle Hamilton, who's the number 14th pick overall, picked them off. But again, they outrushed Baltimore. They outpassed Baltimore. They had more yards per game with Baltimore, but turnovers can beat anybody. They had 5. But I still think they're probably the best team in the NFC, and they may be the second best team in the NFL when healthy. If healthy, when healthy. I know Trent Williams went out of that game with a growing injury. He says he can go back in. Brock Purdy himself had a stinger on his shoulder. He claims he'll be back. They play Washington Commanders this week. I think they'll take care of business and keep that 1 seed in the West. But hey, listen, you can't guarantee anything till it's over with. We know how players get hurt in this league, especially with the Niners. And of course, the Ravens at number 1. Obviously, 5 turnovers caused by that defense, overshadowed by media talking about Lamar Jackson with his pedestrian performance. But all that being said, he also played a very good defense. Don't let me take nothing away from Lamar Jackson here, all right? Sometimes you don't have to have the all-world game. Sometimes you just don't have to lose the game, and he didn't lose the game, okay? 45 yards rushing, 245, 2 touchdowns. Sometimes that's the kind of game that Brady plays. So and he's the favorite right now to get the MVP, and he'll win it again if they go through. This is a big if. Miami next Sunday, this coming up Sunday, and of course the nemesis Pitt Steelers here, which I got an opinion about them as well. So, again, they're 5th in total offense. They're the most balanced team. They still lead the NFL in sacks. Hey, listen, they got players that can beat you on the outside now. Even though you got rookie Zay Flowers, you still got the veteran, Odell Beckham. So it's still there. And Lamar's managed to stay healthy. He's missed 12 games the last 2 seasons there. So they're number 1. Thank you, Pickles. So you got Ravens, 49ers, Bills. I know that's controversial. Browns. I got 2 AFC North teams. And the Eagles, maybe Cowboys or maybe a Dolphins may slip in there next week if these teams go down. It's a week-by-week thing. So we'll have to see how all this plays out, folks. If you like the show, please share the show. Now, I'll be back here. Tomorrow will be Thursday. Give you some previews of some games, what's on the line. Thursday, maybe give you some more points against the spread if I like it or not. If not, we'll see. I'll give you some alternate point spread suggestions. And, of course, on Friday, have Carlos Madden, New York, or Chavez. We'll talk again about the playoff here in college, get his comments on that. What's he think about Russell Wilson? He's going to be available. And, of course, we'll go over last week's games, and we'll do predictions for this weekend. Some big games this weekend. Of course, you got the college playoff here on Monday, New Year's Day. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on Sports Go.